Good evening. This is a public meeting of the Lowell Zoning Board of Appeals for September 28, 2015. And before we get started, remind everyone, if you have an electronic device, can you either turn it off or turn it down completely? And second of all, if you plan on speaking on behalf of a petition, either in favor or in opposition, could you sign your name and address at the podium before addressing the board? First matter before us is under continuances. This is ZB 2015-25. The petition's a variance. The applicant is James Hang. The property is located at 20-22 Hillside Street, and the petition's a variance to maintain an existing structure without meeting proper setbacks. Pursuant to Section 5.1 of the zoning ordinance, we received communication from Mr. Hang that which I'll read into the record. This is dated September 19, 2015. Dear Mr. Jenowitz, please advise that the carport has been completely removed. I will not attend the hearing, which is scheduled on September 28, 2015. Thank you for your cooperation and assistance in this matter. So that, given that Mr. Hang has decided to remove the structure, we'll just take a vote that he's withdrawing from his petition. And if I could have a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2015-025 for variance for 2022 Hillside Street to accept withdrawal of the motion of the variance.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Do I have a roll call?
Mr. Paglia.
Withdrawn?
Mr. Peck.
Withdrawn.
Mr. McCarthy.
Withdraw.
Mr. Bailey.
Approve the withdrawal.
Mr. Perrin.
Approve withdrawal.
Okay, our next matter before us is ZB 2015-28, and this is a special permit, and the applicant is Linkham Zalet. The property is located at 63-65 Puffer Street, and the petition's a variance to maintain the conversion of a deck to a porch and install a new carport without meeting dimensional requirements. Pursuant to Section 5.1 of the zoning ordinance. Is the petitioner here? Yes, sir. You want to come up? Want to come up? How are you? I said, how are you? Good, good. So you were going to attend a couple of meetings ago, and I know you haven't attended the first couple. So are you ready to tell us what you want to do this evening?
I remember the date that to come to the hearing, but this time that Joe's called me, so I put in the calendar. So I apologize last time that I didn't participate to the meeting.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell us about what your plans are for this carport?
Yes, I need a carport because my property doesn't have a land. So I have only the driveway, so maybe in the winter time, so I don't park the car there. Maybe I don't have to shovel the snow before I go to work. When we have a cookout for the family, so also we can use that place for family to get together when the summertime. So only driveway that I have. That's all. I don't have a backyard. I don't have any land.
Yep.
That's the reason that I need a carport for.
Okay. Did you get a chance to read the comments from the city regarding your carport? What the concerns were?
Yes, Joe explained it to me. Yeah.
Yep. So can you tell the board how you plan on handling all the concerns?
Right. So I have to call the company and then have them to come to look at that to meet with the court
Okay,
that,
so
CD
you're
need.
hiring someone
Yeah,
to do this?
yeah, I have to hire somebody to do that. I think the company can, they do that.
So, Joe, do you have any idea, have you seen a contract or anything as of yet with this company?
No, we haven't had any communication with the contractor at this point. The applicant was simply looking to have an approval for the carport. At this point, he hasn't reached out to any specific company yet.
Okay.
Um,
Well, the previous petition that we had was another gentleman that had already put up a carport, and then unfortunately, he found out very quickly there was a lot of code violations by putting up that carport. So we as a board want to make sure if anyone's coming before us for a carport in the future, that they are well aware of the requirements.
Okay.
So if you're going to have a contractor come in, Joe, can they, is it highly suggested that maybe the contractor contact the city and go through the requirements to put this carport in?
Sure, we're more than happy to go over the code requirements, prior to any work being done, unlike the last petition. I think that would be a big savings on the applicant.
Okay. So, Sarah, as far as the carport goes, I don't know if you've hired anybody yet, but when you do decide to hire someone, I would highly suggest you might want to have that company get in touch with Joe's office and
Okay.
review the plans.
Okay.
Now, the other reason why you're here is there's you had a deck and you converted it to a porch?
Right.
Okay. And do you understand you were supposed to come into the city and have that reviewed?
Yeah.
Okay. How long ago did you have the porch put on?
Pardon me?
How long ago was the porch put on?
Since I think since November, I think we started, but it's not finished. That I will do by myself with my brother. So we do a little bit each day.
Joe, has anybody from the city been out there to take a look at the
Yes,
existing structure?
the local building inspector has been by the property.
Okay. Did we receive comments on the porch at all?
Nothing specific for the porch, just the fact that it was a deck and it was converted to a porch without a permit at the time. But an inspector has been over since then to inspect it.
And has there been a permit issued yet?
I believe so.
Okay. So does that mean, you said you're still in process of building it?
Yes.
Okay. Is that the city's understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And so does he understand what the city will allow at this point?
If the variance is granted by the board, then he can continue as he had intended. If not, then his plans will have to be modified to meet the board's requirements.
Okay. So I know one of the things with your property, sir, the rear of your home basically borders on your property line, so I don't think you had any opportunity to put a porch on the back of the house or even a deck. So the only area that you have is where your driveway is. And I know I have a picture of the home. So the porch right now is at the very back of the home at the end of the driveway. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. So I have a picture here from November 7th, 2014. You said last November, right, is when you started?
Yes, the one that I teared it off and then I start over again.
Yeah. Because this picture, and this is from the city website, it almost looks like it's finished at this point. Are you aware of the picture I'm looking at?
No.
No? Because I'm, I guess, kind of surprised that it isn't finished. It almost looks like it's finished to me.
Yeah, it was pretty
Roof
far
on
along.
and stairs, and I don't know what's left. So Joe, if I look at this, what are we talking about? Because obviously his his driveway is basically where his lot line ends. There's a fence there. Do you own the fence, sir, or is that your next door neighbor?
The fence,
Yeah.
yeah, I
there's
have the
a-
fence there.
Well, in this picture, there's a fence. Do you own it, or does the other person own it next door?
I own it, I
You
own it.
Okay. So is that where their lot line is? Do we have any idea of what we're looking at here?
Yeah, it's identified on the plot plan that was submitted with the application, the fence.
Well, I mean, the structure's up, so. Yeah. Right, right. Oh, yeah, yeah. So what are we looking at here? I mean, the structure's already up. Do we know exactly what we're looking for relief, Joe?
Yes, from both the rear and the side setback. Excuse me, just side setback.
Yeah.
For that area because it's a corner lot.
Right. But do we know exactly what we're talking about, what relief we're talking about?
Normally it's 10, some 25 in that district. In this case, it's 3 on one side and 4 on the other. So it's only a total of 7 feet.
Well, okay. Do you have anything else you want to say about the porch, sir?
I would like to put the roof in, put the shingle in.
Roof? Well, I already see a roof on here.
Yeah.
Like I say, this looks like it's pretty much done last November.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to open it up to the public, and then I'm going to move to the board, see if any board members have any questions for you. All right, sir?
Okay,
Thank you.
right, thank you.
Anyone here like to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? In favor? Hearing none. That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? 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 Hearing none. That portion of public hearing is closed. Open it up to the board. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, if you could just come back to the podium for a minute, please. I don't have an issue with the porch. I mean, there was a deck existing there, and I know we find occasionally that residents just don't realize that they're supposed to apply for a permit for certain modifications. So as long as you're working with the city and the building inspector to make sure the porch is safely put up, I don't have an issue with that. But the question I have about the carport, and it's part of the comments from the planning office, is why the carport is so large. It's essentially the entire length of your home. And there are some setback requirements from the street that you're not meeting if you bring the carport all the way out to the edge of your house. So is there any way that you can consider reducing the size of the carport the way the planning office described, the way Joe described in the memo that he gave you?
Well, it's extending, I think it's not too much from the previous post, about 3 feet or 4 feet.
No, I'm
from
not
the-
talking about the porch. I'm talking about the carport that you want to build.
Oh, the
And
car-
you're
carport.
building it the entire length of that side of your home, but it's too big. There are requirements, what is it, 20 feet, Joe, if it's a garage, and
24 if it's a garage, 20 if it were a house. So in this case, the carport is proposed to be matching at the existing house at about 6.5 feet.
6.5 feet, right? So, do you understand what that part of the zoning means? The structure that you want to build is going to be much too close to the street, the carport. So at least I'll be suggesting or requesting as a condition that when you meet with if you meet with the contractor, assuming you're approved, that the size of the carport be reduced from the size that you're proposing, because it's just too large. So,
Okay.
That's all, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Van?
I have no comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Dennis?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we haven't seen any documents showing the design of the proposed carport. I was just wondering if you have anything that you can submit that shows us the type of roof and drainage system that you plan to provide, where you're asking for it to be located 6 inches from your neighbor's property. My concern is what kind of effect that roof structure is going to have in the winter with snow and ice cascading off of that roof, potentially onto the neighbor's property, during the rainstorm with water eroding that neighbor's property. I just don't know what you have in mind for the design of the structure. Have you any plans at all?
No, I didn't get in touch with the contraction or the company of the carport yet because I'm waiting to prove with the city first before I can get in touch with them.
Well, my first thought is that I'm against locating a permanent structure that would be built essentially as a garage that close to a property line. I think having a minimum of 5 feet, even though the zoning requires us to enforce a 10-foot side yard, I think a minimum of 5 feet would be reasonable for a variance in my mind. But you only have 12'6" as a dimension, and so that would give you 7'6" for a structure, which I'm not sure if that would serve a purpose to drive a vehicle that close to your house. So I don't know if you could even build it. So you're asking for something that's, in my mind, a little hard to accomplish, because you're asking for the neighbor to accept your snow, because basically you only have one place for it to go, and that's the neighbor's land, and your rain and water. And I think that's unreasonable, because you should be managing that on your own property. And if you did have a 5-foot strip of land to accept that, you would only have a 7'6" structure. And I think you should have plans in order for us to see the intent of what you expect to build there before we could understand the impact. I agree with my colleague here about the minimum dimension from the street. The setback in the district for a house is 20 feet. I could see some relief from the 24 to 20 feet, and that would give you a length of the structure of about 23'6". But again, without a plan to see exactly what you plan on building, I have a hard time granting conditions for variance because we really don't have the whole picture. Is the carport 10 feet high, 12 feet high? Do you have a height in mind that you plan on building? And how would that impact the existing porch? Does the structure drain to one side? How do you impact the living rooms, the living spaces in the house itself? Do you have any rooms in the house itself that would change because of the garage / carport that would be built next to it? So I don't really feel I have a firm picture of what you want to do to understand it clearly.
Yeah.
No further questions.
Thank you, Dennis. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I agree with Mr. McCarthy. I think first and foremost, we have to have a plan in place. I think the sheer size of it is concerning. And as we look at the host of questions and concerns from the city, I think those need to be addressed. I think primarily back in the same position we have been historically with carports in this city, that they're not properly planned, they're not properly permitted. We're looking at a host of fire safety concerns, codes. I think at this point you're at the beginning stages, and I think having your contractor put together a more scaled down version of what you're looking to do might be more appropriate than trying to move forward in this capacity right now. So I'd have some concerns moving forward with this at this stage. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I share the same sentiments as my colleagues as regards to there's really no plan here that we can see that what we do going forward, and I don't like to go forward with this not knowing, especially with the several fire hazards and concerns that the city has proposed as far as building, whether we meet a building code or not. So my suggestion would be that maybe try to sit with a contractor, get an estimate or something, and go over, get some idea of where, what the plans would be, how you can, alleviate the concerns of the city as far as building code is concerned, and as far as the dimensions are concerned as well. I think that's something that I would suggest you probably might want to consider before going forward. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Joe, question. So for this petition, I mean, it says special permit, but is he's here for the variance for the deck and a special permit for the carport, correct?
Correct.
So in his application, are the two treated
Separately.
together or separate? I
They
mean,
could be treated separately. So if the board wanted to make a decision on the porch
Yep.
and leave a decision on the carport, it could do that.
so if we wanted to, I'll say split the two, as
Mhm.
far as the carport goes, would
Mhm.
that be part of a continuance, or?
Yeah, you could continue that item and take action on the porch item.
I mean, could it be withdrawn and then do a new application or not?
Yeah. That's another option, to have that withdrawn from the petition.
So, sir, as far as the carport goes, based on some of the comments from the board members, I don't think you're really in a position right now to entertain that with the board right now. That's why I've asked Mr. Janowitz if we can treat the deck, or I should say the porch and the carport kind of separately. I really think you should withdraw the carport and, go out and, if you're going to still go forward with this and hire somebody, that you submit a new application for the carport.
Okay.
Make that, make it clean, if you want to say that, or you might look into it and find out there may be some issues with doing that. But secondly, I think we can treat the porch this evening. How do you feel about that? I'm not saying you have to do that. I just think maybe
Oh,
it might work better.
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay.
That's okay.
So Joe, as far as the carport, we'll have a separate vote for that, correct?
Yep.
To withdraw that part, okay. So back to the porch, so you're here for a variance on the porch, and I guess the only thing I need to understand, Joe, is the city gonna go back out at some point and look at the final product, or?
Yes.
Do you have any idea, percentage-wise, how much of that porch is done? Have you been there? You haven't been there, right?
I haven't been there personally, no. As you noted, as my understanding was, that a vast majority of the structure is completed. There's pretty minimal work left to do on it, so
Okay.
it wouldn't be too long for the final
So the
product.
basic footprint, both, again, if I look at that November picture, I mean, that looks like pretty much close to a
Yeah.
finished product. So what's the wishes of the board as far as the porch goes? Dennis?
As far as the porch goes, I'd like to see a condition attached that the porch doesn't receive any further enclosure on the 3 remaining open sides, and that it remains a porch, if we were to grant a variance on that. It does maintain some separation from the property line, even though it's not much, 3 feet and 4 feet, but the footprint is relatively small. And so I don't think the impact on the neighboring property is substantial. So I'm more inclined to accept the porch because of its small footprint, and it does maintain some measure of a setback.
Okay. Any other comments from any other board members? Okay. So Joe, in relationship to Dennis's condition, can we just have somebody from the city go back out and either measure out or take a picture or whatever they need to do, what currently exists there, and also incorporate that the condition that Dennis put in there, that there's nothing new added, just so we can, so do you follow what we're talking about, sir, as far as the porch?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'd go back to, if we're going to approve this variance, that shape and size of that lot is obviously, as I mentioned to you, causes the issue. Since there was a previous deck there and the footprint is basically the same, I believe the board, recognizes that. And again, I think if we go through the prerequisites that, there's a special hardship here just based on the size of that lot and the shape, especially, as I had mentioned, to the rear. So with that said, could I have a motion, please?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2015-028 for a special permit. Is that a special permit or variance?
Variance for the deck.
I'm sorry, for a variance for the deck that doesn't currently meet dimensional requirements for side yard setback, with the following condition: that the deck that is now a porch remain open on 3 sides and receive no further enclosure.
Okay, so I just want to make sure it's a variance for the porch, correct, Joe?
That's correct.
Yep, okay. Could I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Paglia.
Approved with condition.
Mr. Peck.
Approve the conditions.
Mr. McCarthy.
Approve with condition.
Mr. Bailey.
Approved with condition.
Mr. Perrin.
Approved with condition.
Okay, so the next matter we'll take is the carport. So could I have a motion on that, please?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2015-028 for 6365 Puffer Street for a variance for a carport, and the motion is to withdraw the variance.
This will be a special permit, right? Joe, is a special permit for the carport or variance?
Should be a variance.
Okay, all right. Just going by the agenda, it says special permit. Okay. Could I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Paglia.
Withdrawn.
Mr. Peck.
Approve withdrawal.
Mr. McCarthy.
Approve the withdrawal.
Mr. Bailey.
Approve the withdrawal.
Mr. Perrin.
Approve withdrawal.
Okay, sir, so you've been approved for the porch, okay?
Okay, thank you.
And second of all, if you want to reapply for the carport in the future, you can do that also.
Okay,
All right, sir?
all right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Have a good evening.
Good luck.
Okay, our next matter before us is ZB 2015-31. The petition's a variance. The applicant is Stephen Woodman, and the property is located at 63-65 6th Street. And the petition's a variance. The petitioner seeks variance approval to add a 2-story porch without meeting side setback requirements pursuant to Section 5.1 of the zoning ordinance. Good evening, Mr. Woodman. How are you?
How are you guys?
Just great. Great to see you again. So, Mr. Woodman, you were in here a couple of weeks ago, and it's my understanding you met with Joe Janowitz
Yep,
and
we met with Joe.
reviewed your plans, and we received the plans that you're submitting and that you reviewed with Joe. We also received some pictures of the structure
Yeah,
that's currently there.
yeah, because I'm no artist, so, I
Yep.
did the best I could. I figured with the
Okay,
pictures. it
so
would
can you,
definitely help.
Can you tell the board, what you discussed with Joe and what you guys came up with?
Well, with the discussion of the parking, I think, was the main thing that we were talking about the last time, is that we didn't want to lose any parking. So what I did was I made some measurements on the existing frame there, and up against the house to the actual inside of the frame is 7 foot 10 inches. So that would be where a post would be. I also took a measurement off the existing stairs, which you can see on the second picture. And I went out 3 foot 6 for a landing, and then I measured the length of the driveway out to the beginning of the sidewalk, and it came up with over 36 feet. So I don't think I'm really losing anything. So I just wanted to make sure of that, make sure you guys knew that I wasn't, losing a spot because of the way that it was. The other issue was, I think Dennis was asking me about the stairs, on where the stairs were, and it was very hard to describe without pictures and stuff. So if you look at the first picture, you can actually see the stairwell that will be going from the second floor down to the first floor porch. And that's the existing stairwell that's there. And that will be landing on the second picture next to the existing step that's there. The first picture is the one that's written that says 7 foot 10 inches. All right, that one is showing the stairwell on the second floor. And then if you go to the second page, it's like a face of the first floor porch with the stairs existing there. And if you look like up higher and then down lower, that's the section where the stairs will be coming into the porch. You see how there's like a blank area next to the existing stairs? That's where the stairs will be coming onto the porch from the second floor porch. I've just given you some more, a little bit more detail to show you the side of the house. Exactly, yeah. That's showing second floor. Now, the drawings that I did, like I said, I'm no artist, but by looking at those pictures, you can see from the side view that how the stairs from the second floor are going down to the first floor porch on the side view.
Yep. Yeah, I'm on. Sorry about that. I just want to make sure the second spot doesn't go over the right-of-way or the sidewalk that's currently there.
Generally speaking, 2 cars should be able to fit there.
Yep.
As the applicant had mentioned, it's approximately 36 feet from the edge of the stairway to the edge of the front property line. There wouldn't be much of a setback in terms of a parking space from the sidewalk. But that's 18 feet is a requirement for a parking space, so that would be 36 feet.
Yep. And another question would be, in reviewing Mr. Woodman's plans, we didn't receive any comments from any city departments at all.
No.
Are there anything around, like fire department, for instance? Do they need to review this at all or not?
We didn't receive any comments from them, but we
Yep.
could get
Okay.
something confirming from them. They'd have no comments if the board would like.
Okay, just want to double check that. All right. All right, anything else you want to add, Ms. Woodman?
No, I just know that I'm no artist, so I wanted to make sure that everybody kind of saw what was going on.
Yep.
And I did, you know, that was a big concern to me too, because you were saying that you definitely want to have 4 spaces per a 2-family. So when I went back there, I was like, wow, maybe I am losing a space. But by measuring it out, I said, wow, I'm really not, you know?
Yep.
The other thing I was telling Joe too was where those existing stairs are on the first floor now,
Yep.
I could really actually put like posts up out in the driveway, you know, 3'6" out away from the stairs, so that if anybody was to come and park, then the post would be there so they wouldn't be able to back up any further, you know, closer to the stairs. You see what I mean? So we could put some posts there if we wanted to, if you guys wanted me to do that, so then that way a car could never get close to those stairs. It would always be that 3'6" landing in the driveway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'll leave that to the board, see
Okay,
if there's any
okay.
comments in that. Is anything else?
No?
Okay, great. I'm gonna reopen it up to the public, and then we'll open up to the board. Anyone here like to speak in favor of this petition? Favor? In favor? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone here like to speak in opposition? 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 Hearing none. That portion of public hearing is closed. Open up to the board. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Don't have any questions, just a comment. I think the petitioner came back to us with what we required of him the prior meeting. Granted, as you said, you're no artist, but it helps us get a better picture of what you were planning on doing, and
Yeah.
I'm satisfied with what was submitted, so I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Van?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, you know, like my colleague said, Mr. Woodman, we appreciate the additional documents and the visuals, and you know, I have a clear picture of what you're trying to do, and overall, I think this is improvement to the existing deck, and you're adding a mean of egress where it didn't exist before. So overall, I think this is a good project, and you know, I wish you well, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Van. Dennis?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask a couple of questions, and I'm glad you explained your drawings, because I will say, I was trying to figure them out. There is going to be a large second deck,
It is larger than the first deck, correct?
and that second deck basically matches the limit of the existing porch, except it extends out into the existing driveway.
That's right. The width of the porch does not change at all. It's just that the porch is longer up the top than it is down the bottom, so that I can incorporate the stairs on the inside of the porch, you know, out of the weather and so on and so forth, so.
One of the strategies was to accomplish 36 feet of depth to have the 2 parking spaces. I'm a little puzzled how that's accomplished with a post to support that porch, because I imagine that post that's supporting the second level, the top porch,
Right.
is going to not allow you to get another car closer.
The post on the picture itself, you can see that there is, after I put the post in, you'll have an area of 7'10" in there, because it's already 8 feet out. But when you put the post in, of course, you lose a little bit. So I'm dealing with between one point on the house and the post itself, when it's there, it's 7'10". And Joe said to me, well, it's supposed to be 8 feet. And I said, well, if I move that, then that means that the variance that I'm asking for will change. Because I'm asking for a 4.5 variance. And if I put additional ledger boards out on this porch to move the post over to get it further away from the house, then my variance will change on the property by a couple of inches, you know? But I mean, and it can be accomplished if you really need
Yep.
that 8 feet, Dennis, you know? That's what you're concerned
I
about,
just
I
wanted to
think.
bring that to light for everyone else on the board, to be aware that we are approving a parking space with, they're up against the house that's
Right, now,
less
it's
than
not
8 feet.
totally up against the house, because it's really it's really the bump out of the house.
Well, it's the bay window, I understand
Yeah,
that.
right.
Yep,
So
you're right.
it's just one little point on the driveway that it is affected that way.
I got it. No, one,
Okay.
one other element, though, is that when you were here last, we talked about the fact that you were providing a safer scenario for the third floor egress.
Correct,
So the third floor would exit down to the second floor porch
correct.
and then go down the stair to the first floor
To the-
outside.
Right, because the existing porches that were there originally did not have stairs that went in between the second floor and the first floor porch.
Is there going to be a roof structure
Yes, it's gonna be roofed.
on top of the second floor porch?
Yes,
Okay, so we're gonna have additional snow and whatever falling in this 4-foot 5-inch setback that we have to the next lot. Okay. Which is supposed to be 10 feet, and so we're giving you relief of 5 foot 5 inches. And we're already fighting a grade issue there where you're putting material closer to the property line that's on a slope going downhill. In any event, it is what it is. Is that entire area paved right now, that 4 foot 5
yes,
inches?
it is, yes.
And so I imagine the water, rain goes into a...
Yeah, the driveway has like a little slight pitch to it, so it does, it does run more to his property than runs down the driveway,
Okay,
out to the street,
yeah.
I plan on, putting some melt up there on the actual, structure on the roof itself. And I plan on guttering it too, along with that. Because, I want to control the water myself too, And over the years that I've been, working on the place, I've been putting some drainage in here and there so that, it does stop that from happening. So, ultimately, when it's done, I'm hoping that I don't get any ice out there. Only the ice that's left when you have a storm or what have you, but nothing built up, added to it,
Do you have some green space in the rear of the property where the pool is? Or how much of the backyard is paved?
How much is what now?
Backyard is paved?
How much is?
How much of the backyard is hard surface?
The whole backyard is actually deck.
Is deck?
Hmm.
I guess I want to just ask Joe, so, Joe, what's the drainage strategy for this lot? It looks like we're relying on the neighbors in the street to take the water from this lot, because we're not really taking care of the water on the lot itself with green space or pervious cover.
That's what it generally sounds like from the discussion you were just having, yes. If the board wanted, the applicant could review some options with the engineering office to try to mitigate any impacts from this project and to try to make some improvements on the property.
I'd really like to see us have infiltration on site rather than relying for the neighbors to accept all the water from your runoff. And so what that means is giving up pavement, so that we could accomplish a way for the water to infiltrate on the site to the ground rather than. Would you be accepting of working with the engineering department to come up with a solution for drainage on your site by maybe possibly reducing some of your pavement? I mean, I don't think that pavement beside the deck really serves any purpose anymore once you build your deck there, right?
Well, what it does is it actually goes down first and then goes out to the backyard.
Okay.
So there's a spot, I don't know if on the drawing you can see it on the side view. Yeah, see, I didn't really show that too well, but underneath the first floor deck is a drop-off down to some more concrete down there.
Yeah,
And then it goes out to the pool area.
I understand.
Okay.
What I'm asking, though, is that we end up with something that's dirt, grass, gravel, something on site for water to infiltrate on your site? Because I think you're really hardscape everywhere, and we're
Right,
not
there's a,
really
there's,
solving
there's a
that.
lot of, there's a lot of drain grates around that I put in myself
Okay,
to help with the drainage. You know, you, believe, you'd like it, you know what I mean? It's set up pretty good so that we do have the drainage. The other thing that, Bob is my neighbor. The other thing I did was I helped him, with his drainage in that alley that way next to my driveway. And what we do is we put another thing down at the end of his yard next to his, building. And that has a big grate that all the water goes in and it goes down to his lower backyard.
okay.
So, I mean, we've already, you know, worked on the drainage already before this was even occurring.
I just think it should be revisited maybe now that we're introducing a bigger structure, more
Mm-hmm.
roof. So I'd just like you to work with the EPD as a
Yeah.
condition if the rest of the board
Sure.
agrees with that. Okay. No further questions. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dennis. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I echo the same comments as Mr. McCarthy as it relates to drainage. As far as having some type of impervious surface, I know that drop-off goes down, but with concrete going back into the backyard,
Yeah.
when you know, it's tight, it's tight.
Yeah.
I do have some concerns about the
Yeah.
parking area with that beam, that center poles coming down, but as far as the drainage, it just doesn't seem to be going anywhere. And you made comments that you've done some drainage work
Yes, we
on-site.
have, yeah.
I just think if you have a plan in place with the city so that not everything's rushing off to your neighbors and it's not coming backward, back onto the street. As far as putting a roof up, I would suggest, I know it's expensive, I would suggest copper prior to using ice melters, because of the damage the long-term damage you'll have over ice melters on your asphalt shingles is gonna be greater
Absolutely,
than,
I was planning on doing
Some
a
heat wires.
rubber roof on that.
yeah, rubber roof or some heat
Yeah.
wire or something, but
Mhm.
I just caution you with ice melters, but I do think that working with the city for a drainage
Yeah,
resolution would be, you know,
to make sure that that's gonna be okay.
it would be more satisfactory from my standpoint if we had
Okay.
just some type of drainage plan. And if you're open to the comments Mr. McCarthy made and as
Okay.
part of
That's
the
fine.
condition, then certainly I'm sure.
So what would happen, they'd come out, take a look and see what I have now, and then say, okay, well, as long as you're doing this to the structure, then we'll be good to go? Is that how it works, or? Joe?
Do you want to address that, Joe?
Joe can address that.
Yeah, it'd be best if you first communicated with the city. We could get the appropriate personnel to either meet you on site, see
Okay.
what the existing conditions are, and then work on a plan from there to
Okay,
mitigate the concerns of the board.
absolutely.
They'll have plenty of options and their professional input, and I think from my standpoint and
Okay.
Mr. McCarthy's standpoint, it'll make it easier to understand.
Excellent.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions or comments, Mr. Woman. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, I guess based on everything that's said, and, you know, first of all, I'm glad you got your plans together, you sat with Joe, you reviewed them. We didn't receive any comments back that was like, you know, that's a nice plan, but we can't go forward with it. You know, I think the board asked some very good questions. It sounds like we have some conditions that we'd like to put in place
Okay.
before we, or as we vote on this. Again, looking at your lot is undersized in current zoning today anyway, so you're already, again, under a hardship just based on the size of your lot. And now, you've been there 17 years, right,
Yeah.
sir? Yeah. So obviously, you know, if you look at your property, you know, you take pride in your property. It's very well maintained. You told the board you recognize some safety issues with the current structure of your porches.
Yeah,
So now that you've had a full review with the city and the board has a good understanding. And as far as the variance, again, because of the shape and size and really the undersizement of that lot, I believe relief can be granted. So as far as conditions, I know did you mention just the one condition, or?
I did just mention the one condition, the comments back from DPW were also to provide landscaping as far as providing a screen that's more conducive to the neighborhood. I think that was one of them.
So, Mr. Woodman, do you understand that as far as the screening? Why don't you just
Okay,
mention that?
the comments that we got back from the Department of Planning and Development was, one of them was to provide a landscape plan that would include additional vegetative screening on the site. Right now, it doesn't seem like you have a lot of vegetation to provide.
No,
some
there's none.
appeal. So one of the conditions might be to work with DPD to develop a landscaping plan that you could implement on the site.
Okay. And how do I go about doing that?
Well, you can sit. You can,
Talk to Joe?
well, you can sit
Okay.
with the department, and and this isn't to put any more burden on you as far as dollars. This
Right.
is just, work with them as best you can.
Okay.
And I'm sure they'll come up with a solution that's cost-effective for you.
Okay.
Okay. All right, any other conditions? Any other board members' comments? Okay, so could I have a motion, please?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2015-031 for a variance for 6365 6th Street with the following conditions. That the applicant work with the engineering department to develop a solution to increase on-site infiltration and reduce off-site runoff. And second condition is to work with DPD to develop a landscaping plan that is appropriate for the site.
Do I have a second?
Second the motion.
Roll call?
Mr. Paglia,
Approved with conditions.
Mr. Peck,
Approve the conditions.
Mr. McCarthy,
Approve with conditions.
Mr. Bailey,
Approved with conditions.
Mr. Perrin.
Approve with conditions.
Okay, Mr. Woodman, been approved.
Okay,
I told you the last time you were here, have faith,
thank you. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys.
So,
So just work with Joe on that, and we can figure that all out.
yep. So we wish you the best of luck.
Thanks, guys.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Have a good
Good
evening.
night.
Yep. Okay, our next matter is under new business. This is ZB 2015-34. The petition's a special permit. The applicant is Sean Galligan, and the property is located at 400 Bridge Street. And the petition, special permit for illuminated signs pursuant to section 6.32 of the zoning ordinance. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Good, how you doing?
Good. So we received your package, and so could you tell us exactly what you plan on doing there, sir?
Yeah, it's gonna be a illuminated channel letter signage on the front street, facing side of the building.
So you're here from the sign company?
I'm not.
No?
No, I'm the owner.
You're Sean, right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Have you had a business before on Bridge Street?
I have not. We were over at 850 Chelmsford in the 99 Plaza, so we're relocating.
Okay, so you're relocating over there?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So if this is Liberty Tax, is this going to be like a seasonal, or is this a full-time,
The
year-round?
tax portion is seasonal, but we're gonna look for supplemental income, bookkeeping, insurance, et cetera.
Yep, okay. All right. And how long were you on Chelmsford Street, sir?
The business was, my business partner and I purchased it 2 tax seasons ago. So we have
Okay.
9 territories in the state.
Okay. And we received no comments back from the city. That's correct, Joe, right?
That's correct.
Yep, okay, thank you. All right. So you're giving us an idea of, is this the same type of signage that you have on, or had on Chelmsford Street, or is there anything new
It was
with
not.
this?
The plaza had the box sign,
Yeah.
which is a little bit lower
Okay,
grade, but.
all right. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
I'm sorry?
Anything else you'd like to tell us? Yeah, you
Not
just like to
especially
get
when I'll
approved,
answer any
yeah,
questions,
right,
yeah.
okay. All right, I'm going to open it up to the public and then to the board, all right?
Okay.
Anyone here like to speak in favor of this petition? In favor? Favor? Hearing none. That portion of public hearing is closed. Anyone like to speak in opposition? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Anne Marie Page. I reside at 26 Fremont Street. I sit on the board of the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group, and I'm Vice President of Citywide Neighborhood Council. I'm sorry, but there's something wrong with your microphones in here. We can't hear half of the conversation, so I don't know what this gentleman was trying to say to us. So if the microphones aren't working just right, maybe you could speak a little louder and then we could pick it up, because we've missed quite a bit of the conversation at the beginning, and we just all figured we were all going deaf at the same time, but I don't think that's what's happening. May I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Exactly what is the name of the business? I didn't hear that.
It's Liberty Tax.
Beg your pardon?
Liberty Tax?
Oh, thank you. Very good. All right, now I know exactly where he is. We couldn't hear you over there. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else like to speak in opposition? Opposition? Hearing none, that portion of public hearing is closed. I'd like to open up to the board. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a quick question to the petitioner in regards to the hours of operation. Do you have some idea of, will the sign be lit 24 hours a day or just during normal business hours?
The hours of operation during the tax season is 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 to 6 on Saturday, Sunday, 12 to 6. The signage will be on a timer. January through February, it's probably going to go on about 4 p.m. We have this particular signage in store in Salem, and we're actually moving all our locations, or the majority that we can, with the landlords allow, to this LED channel letter. We'll put it on a timer. The one in Salem goes off at 2 a.m., but I understand you may have different restrictions on that with it where it is here, but we'll definitely have it on have an electrician put it on a timer.
Okay, thanks. No further questions.
Thank you, Mike. Dan?
I have no comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Dennis?
Through Mr. Chairman, it looks like there was a tax company here before in that particular site,
Correct.
Smart Tax?
Correct.
And so they had a sign in a similar location, not quite as long, that covered over the transom glass windows
Correct.
of the historical facade, rather than using the sign band that's above it. So I'm just wondering, Joe, did anyone from the city work at all with Liberty Tax to develop a sign design that might be more in keeping with the look and feel of the historic nature of the building?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm not opposed to the LED lighting. I think that that's a great idea, but I'm just thinking that you might be more successful with the sign design rather than just copy what your neighbor or the previous tenant had done.
Well, he put, but it was like a metal signage, and it covered the entire the facade, and it wasn't lit, and it was just very cheap metal. So this is a different. No, I mean
I know that the property though could look better,
Yep.
and might even give you a better image than just putting the sign across the transom glass. And I think that you've got a lot to work with here with the structure itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it might behoove you to take advantage of the city planning department to assist in coming up with a stronger image for the structure.
Okay,
So I'd like to make a condition that you work with DPD to review your signage and develop a plan that is agreeable to both you and is more compatible with the structure. You're missing an opportunity to make it look even better, is my point. But I think the LED makes a lot of sense.
okay. Are you talking about the position of the sign?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, the position of the sign, and bring out the character of the structure itself.
Okay,
Because you got a great looking storefront, you know, and you're kind of losing part of it by just putting the sign across the transom glass.
okay.
I'd like to see the transom glass remain intact if we could.
Okay.
But-
I would assume I have to talk to the landlord there too, as I'm not the owner of the building, so, as far as where he'll actually allow signage. I know his business, he actually owns the building, and his wife has a business next door.
Cool cuts?
Yes, and she's right over the glass
Oh,
as well.
And I understand that sign is exactly what you're proposing. It's basically the same idea, it covers right across the transom glass. He might be open to seeing a successful sign that you do and might upgrade his, who knows?
Okay,
It's worth exploring.
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the only comment I have is, it's nice to see you're moving from one part of the city to another part of the city and keeping your business in the city.
Yep.
I know you've been over in Chelmsford Street for a couple of years now.
Correct, the business was there a few years before.
Yeah, so, and we're always a big fan of the LED lighting. I understand Dennis's point, and certainly if you can have that conversation with the landlord, but it's nice to see a business stay in the city and just change locations, especially when we stay in God's country. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions or comments. I just wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
So I guess as far as granting the special permit for the signage, I guess the only condition I would probably say is based on Dennis's comment to you, if you want to, address it with your landlord and see if they're able to, maybe implement the change that we're recommending. I don't think it's a recommendation to making it detrimental for your signage. It could be actually an improvement.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I know talking to the signage company, and
Yep.
we are actually, if anything, maybe even lessening the size just due to the proximity to the street. The
Yep.
signage company recommended that as well. But I know there's certain requirements that the facade has. It has to be at least 2 feet in height for the channel letters to fit. So I know that there are issues with that as well.
Yep. And we received no comments from the city in regards to the sign, which, bodes well for yourself. So with that, I'd like to have a motion, so we're just talking the one condition, but, it's not make or break on this condition, it's just our highly recommended solution. Okay. Go have a motion, please.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for ZB 2015-034 for a special permit for 400 Bridge Street for illuminated signs with the following condition: that the applicant work with DPD to review the sign design and see if there's an opportunity to create a more historically compatible sign for the structure that it's going to be put on.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Mr. Padley,
Approved with conditions.
Mr. Peck,
Approve the conditions.
Mr. McCarthy,
Approve with condition.
Mr. Bailey,
Approved with conditions.
Mr. Perrin.
Approved with condition.
Okay, sir, been approved. Wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, our next order of business is under other business. And this is a pre-application for 557 Varnum Ave. And the applicant is GPG Acquisitions LLC, and they have requested the zoning board to provide a preliminary review of their proposed project. Just as a reminder, this is not a public hearing. The zoning board will render no decision related to this proposal, nor guarantees any future decision, whether positive or negative, on any project that receives pre-application review. The project, the applicant proposes to renovate a building previously utilized as a nursing home into 18 residential units. The applicant would need to seek special permit approval under section 4.52 of the City of Lowell zoning ordinance. The parcel is comprised of approximately 52,261 square feet of land area and is located in the SSF, that's the Suburban Single Family Zoning District. And could I have the representative speak before the board?
Good evening, Chairman Bailey and members of the board. For the record, my name is Attorney Stephen Gearing, and I represent my client Saeed Coates, who is the principal of GPG Acquisitions. And just a little bit of background about Mr. Coates. He has never had a project in the city before, but he is an experienced businessman and developer in projects far larger than the one that we're proposing here tonight. He has an engineering background, and he has an MBA from MIT, and he has been successful in all of his projects. So I think that the city would enjoy working with Mr. Coates. So we're happy to be here for the pre-application scope review of a project that's proposed. We think it's a great idea that there's an opportunity to come here and discuss this in a non-public hearing atmosphere, because it allows very informal feedback and something that Mr. Coates seeks from this board. So as you can see, and I'm sure everybody's gone by this project, this is a project located at 557 Varnum Ave, a former nursing facility. You know that corridor has several nursing homes, and this one, this particular nursing home has been boarded up, I believe, since March of 2014, and it's not particularly attractive right now. I think in its heyday, it mirrored most of the smaller nursing homes on that street, which can be a busy area. So under 4.5.2, Mr. Coates proposes, through his company, proposes a less detrimental use, a pre-existing non-conforming less detrimental use of single residential units. Some of them, most of them are single, and some of them would be two-person units, but they'd be marketed toward the professional crowd, and I think you have a lot of handouts in front of you. Most importantly is a traffic study that shows that it would be a far less detrimental impact on that neighborhood. There'd be less trips, less cars on off-street parking, and several other benefits that would come for this use that's less detrimental. The proposal also takes into consideration, and Mr. Coates was very particular about this. He read the entire city master plan, the Pawtucketville plan, and he wanted to maintain the character of that neighborhood, and he proposes no changes to the exterior of this building, no additional paving or anything like that. Pretty much there'd be a new roof, new paint job, and some new windows, and everything would be modernized and make that building look excellent. Almost immediately, when he's done the project, the neighborhood would see the impact of that. It's a great area. Pawtucketville, always has been. It's probably, the most protected neighborhood of its residents in the city, and they do a very good job at that. And they're residents, and they care about that community. And what Mr. Coates proposes, more residents who would also care about that community, as opposed to the former use, which you can imagine with, I think, what we gave you for the information, that at any given day there were 50 employees there. There were several people visiting all the patients that were there, most obviously not driving, if not all of them not driving. There were ambulances, doctors, nurses, people coming in and out all the time, and it created a substantial traffic burden in that area, but it was an allowed use at the time. In addition to that, there were the shifts that people worked, the 7 to 3, just happened to fall on the busiest traffic time in that area. the proposed use would be marketed towards people who would have traditional jobs, you know, leaving at 7 or 8 in the morning, coming back at 5, 6, or 7 at night, and not many trips during the day. I think it's a great opportunity for the city. As I said, Mr. Coates is a successful businessman. He has thought this project out. He has engaged architects, he has engaged attorneys, he has engaged engineers, and he's done everything along the way to make this project as, I guess, easily acceptable to the city and to you folks as the deciding body as he can. He's met with the planning department, he's met with the neighborhood, he's gone around and talked to neighbors, and he's done all his due diligence. And this is kind of the final step before the formal application to bring this before this board and really see what you think about it and get your input. If there's any suggestions that you have, he's willing to consider that. And any particular questions you have regarding the project that I can't answer, Mr. Coates would certainly love to address this board on any of that. So we do appreciate your time because it's not a public hearing and it is just preliminary, but we're open to answer any questions you might have.
So I guess the first question I'll ask, the picture that we actually received of the exterior of the facility,
Yes.
is that exactly what it's going to look like, or is that just?
That is,
like a-
that is exact, yeah, he can answer that, but that is exactly, that's not an artist's rendition so much as what it's gonna look like. But
Yep.
he was dealing with the architect completely, so I'll let him address that. If that's
Sure.
okay.
First, I'd like to thank you, Chairman Bailey, and to the board for giving us your feedback. It's definitely an integral part of our process and considering how we move forward with this proposed project. To answer your question specifically,
I just gotta have to do this. Can you just tell us who you are, please?
absolutely. My name is Saeed Coates,
Yep.
and I'm with the ownership at 557 Varnum Avenue here in Lowell.
Good. Thank you.
So to answer your question specifically, the rendering that you have in front of you was done by Gavin and Sullivan, local architects. They did a tremendous job doing a inspirational rendering. That's the aesthetic vision that we're aiming for. I can't say at this moment that it's exactly what will be there, but that is the aesthetic that we're aiming for. And we felt that it was in character and in kind with the neighborhood. So there was deliberate attention paid to that detail.
Okay. So I guess I'd ask at the time of that you full application be submitted, will you have an exact, I guess I'll call it replication of what you plan on doing, at least on the exterior, what the plans would be?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because when I took a look at this picture, I was curious. I mean, obviously, Attorney Gary mentioned, you know, as far as the footprint's going to stay as is. There's nothing new being added or nothing being taken down. So I was just curious, you know, was this going to be the finished product, or was it kind of like, you know, this is what it may look like? Because when I saw the stone wall and the steps, and then I saw the green space, I was kind of interested to see if that was going to be the finished product, but obviously you've answered the question.
Right, and just to clarify, there's not going to be any knockouts, no towers, nothing that's going to change that structure of the building whatsoever. So we're not presenting that plan, and then you're going to see an entirely different plan, or anything even substantially different. The color may not be that color if they choose a different color, but whatever it will be in line with historically with what should go in that area. Obviously, you know, it's to his benefit to have it aesthetically pleasing and to make sense historically.
The two parking surfaces that currently exist, do you plan on doing anything different with the parking surfaces, or are they going to stay as they are?
There's nothing required as far as the stormwater management. There's not going to be any, you know, repaving or redigging, or it's pretty much going to be what it is. I think there's 40 striped spots right now, and I'm not sure, you know, at this point, there's no plan to expand that at this point. But I don't, you know, we're assuming that there will not be any changes to that at all.
Yep. Okay.
I mean, the former nursing home had that, all those parking areas paved, lined, maintained, plowed for all these years, even the prior owner. So, you know, they've always taken care of that parking, they've built that parking, and that's what they plan to stay. To say, you know, will they not fix any cracks, you know, I assume that they would. But nothing's going to be added to it at this point.
Okay. Well, instead of me asking all the questions, I'm going to move to any of the board members, if any of the board members have any questions or comments for the applicant. You want to go, Mike? Yep, go ahead.
I have a couple of comments and a couple of questions. I guess the first comment would be, you know, on the surface, this, something being done there looks like, you know, seems like it would be a good idea, because the neighbors have had to look now at this building. Even before it was boarded up, it just had I don't know how long it sat vacant for, but it's been vacant for a while, and now, you know, over time it's been boarded up for probably for safety, fire and safety reasons, so it looks even worse now than just a regular vacant building. But that being said, I think that the issue, at least for me, would be the fact that even though this was a prior existing non-conforming use, it's in the suburban single-family district, and so this is the type of development that if someone was coming in from scratch with a vacant lot in this neighborhood and saying they wanted to build a 20-unit apartment building, I mean, I don't think there'd be any question that we wouldn't allow that to happen, because every other home in the area is a single or two-family. I mean, there's probably a few two-family homes there, even though it's suburban single-family. But so I think that would be my real concern too, is that we'd be essentially approving the type of thing that we try to stop from happening now in the city. Even the petition that you had a couple of weeks ago, where there's a 2 or 3 story apartment building, you know, multi-unit building smack dab in the middle of a residential neighborhood by the reservoir. If that was coming before us, we probably wouldn't entertain approving something like that. The question I have, I guess, is that, and I'm guessing I already would know what the answer is, although I've never worked, you know, as a contractor or a developer. That would be, you know, leveling the site, ripping up the hot top, and putting down a couple of, you know, single-family homes, dividing up the lot so that there's either 2 homes facing Varnum or 1 facing Varnum, and then maybe the corner lot on, is it Meadowview? You know, could be 1 home there, you know, and I'm sure from a, you know, business perspective, it doesn't make any sense to do that, but then it would just return that lot to certainly more in line with a conforming use, although the lot sizes might now be too small for a single family. But that would just be, I guess, my question. Again, I realize what the answer probably is.
It doesn't make any business sense economically.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't have purchased it. So when he purchased this building, you know, as a business endeavor, he approached it as, you know, he did his due diligence before he did that. That was a pre-existing non-conforming use, and his proposal is not to burden the neighborhood with a more detrimental use. It's a far less detrimental use than what was there. So the standard would be he goes back to what was the prior owner and what was that use, and that's what he's guided by, because there's nobody that would buy that project and tear it down and then they'd lose money just on the tearing down process before they even started to put a foundation in the ground for 2 single families that might not look great there. The good thing is that area is used to seeing that home there, that nursing home. They're used to seeing the nursing home with a lot of activity there in prior years and many trips, and they're not going to see that now. They're going to see a more maintained, less institutional looking building, more residential, which is in line with the master plan of the city and in line with the neighborhood plan for that too. You know, he wouldn't be, if it was a vacant lot, he wouldn't be proposing, you know, building a 20-unit building there, is, I guess, my point.
No, I know. I mean, I know I bunched a couple of different ideas together there, and I knew that the answer would be not to tear down a building and tear up 60 or 50 parking spaces and start from scratch. But again, ultimately what we would be doing is approving for the second time, you know, approving in Pawtucketville or whatever neighborhood, a non-conforming use, even though it was pre-existing. It was pre-existing as a non-conforming use. And so the zoning was partially rewritten to stop this type of development from being plopped down into a suburban single-family neighborhood, because it's a suburban single-family neighborhood. It's not traditional two-family. It's not some of the other mixed-use neighborhoods. So again, that's just some questions, concerns,
A
and
good point, too. And
thoughts that I
if
have
I could
about
just
it.
respond briefly to that, I think the zoning also takes into consideration the reason why they have a pre-existing, non-conforming, less detrimental use standard is so when a businessman comes in and wants to buy an existing building such as this and not make it another nursing home or something like that, the zoning allows him to do that through this board with a special permit if it's a less detrimental use. So in other words, if we could say, okay, we always had that, now we're going to something better for the neighborhood. I think that's what the intent of the zoning is, at least from my interpretation of reading it. So, but I understand your point. And you, excuse me.
Thank you, Michael. Again, my name is Saeed Coates. Just to respond to your comment, so you hit it spot on. Economically, it would not make sense to endeavor to tear down the building and then build a couple of single-family units. If you look at the average selling price of homes in Lowell, again, the economics just don't pencil out, and so someone would need to subsidize that loss. So I think that option is probably not reality from a business perspective, as you mentioned. But to your point about just kind of the zoning laws being rewritten, again, as Attorney Geary specified, Section 4.5.2 clearly states that you can take one non-conforming use and change that to another non-conforming use if you can prove that it's less detrimental to the community. And I think what we presented does a great job of presenting some of those facts. And so when you look at it from a parking perspective, I put satellite images in your packet. You'll see that previously as a nursing home, there was a tremendous parking burden on the community. I've spoken to many of my neighbors, and they've shared stories with me about how the parking just created all sorts of nightmares for them. As Attorney Geary mentioned, at any given time of the day, particularly between the peak shift of 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., they had Genesis Healthcare had approximately 50 employees on site. They had 101 beds that they were licensed to have. They also had doctors, nurses, all sorts of visitors coming. So when you look at that use, I think conceptually that's our baseline that we're comparing to say, okay, does the new use meet this burden of proof under Section 4.5.2 of being less detrimental to the community? And I think that we've gone a long way to help you guys to assess that. And also with the character of the neighborhood, also as Attorney Geary mentioned, I read the Pawtucketville Master Plan cover to cover. I also read the Lowell City Plan cover to cover. If you look at the Pawtucket Neighborhood Master Plan, you'll find that the root word character appears in that document 49 times. It only has 36 pages of content. So obviously, everything that is presented before you, I had the character of the neighborhood in the forefront of our minds, making sure that these plans reflected the character of the neighborhood. That nursing home has been an established institution in the neighborhood for over 50 years now. There will be some use at that building. And so again, we're looking to move it to be something that's more aligned with the neighborhood. So it may not get all the way to suburban single-family zoning, but we're trying to better align the use with the building, and so that's the objective.
No, and I, sorry, Mr. Chairman, through you. Again, I agree with that, and I understand that with the granting of a special permit, we could allow a non-conforming use to continue there. So I think a couple of the issues or a couple of questions about whether it's adding to the character of the neighborhood are not clear yet, although we have the rendering and some idea of what landscaping would look like, for instance, that the parking area for the nursing home has metal guardrails and I think maybe some concrete block walls that if that was in the application might again help make a decision if the landscape, if the building is screened from the other single-family homes in the area, if the guardrail was coming down, if it didn't still look like an institution on, two sides of the building, it looks like it would look great on Varnum Street, but the rest of the site would still look like the nursing home that existed there. If we don't know, again, this is just a pre-application review, but so that would be something, again, as Attorney Gary mentioned in his opening, this is, a proposed rendering of the renovations, but not a full look at how it would help blend back into the neighborhood, so.
Got it. And just to echo back, make sure I'm hearing you correctly, so you're recommending screening on the Varnum side of the building? Is that what you're recommending as part of your statement?
No, not the Varnum side, more on the side of
Backside.
on the
northern
Meadowview Meadowview, and then to the homes that are in the rear of the facility, because they're looking at guardrails, they're looking at essentially it's almost like they're looking at the back of a small retail building with
Right.
guardrails and cinder block and pavement. So that would certainly be something. I know the intent is to maintain the number of parking spaces, but that would be something that would help me reconsider or consider the application as far as how it would blend even more into the neighborhood.
Got it. We can add that to the plans. And then also, just to speak to the guardrails, I happened to speak to the owner, the prior owner rather, that used to live next door on Meadowview. I'm forgetting the exact number, but there's a house on the northerly side where the metal guardrails are at. Just a little bit of historical perspective. Those guardrails obviously did not always exist. She owned the property probably about 12 years ago. Her and her husband moved to Florida. They recently just moved back 2 weeks ago, and they now live on Rule, which is kind of around the corner. And so she also, by chance, used to work at the nursing home. And she told me that the people that would come visit the nursing home, including employees, kept knocking her fence down. So that was actually added as a safety measure so that there wouldn't be property destruction or some error, slip of a foot, someone goes right into her property. So that's actually a safety measure, but we're willing to look at it again, and whatever recommendations the ZBA has, we'll obviously take them into account.
Thank you. Thanks to the applicant, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. No further questions or comments.
Okay. Thank you. Van, anything?
I have no comments, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Dennis?
Through Mr. Chairman, I like the idea of this a lot because I think you're right that it does take a structure that had a more impactful kind of use in a negative way on the neighborhood and softens it. I'd like to see it go further. I noticed that the rendering that you have, which is an inspirational rendering, which I like that phrase, does create a stronger connection with the character of the neighborhood by going to the single double-hung windows, having a pediment that's a different tone. So it really does try to take the architecture that's there and make it more compatible with the surrounding homes. Maybe you could even start to break down the massing here a little bit because it still reads as a single structure, and I don't know if it's possible to make it read more as 2 or 3 structures to help, because right now you don't have anything nearly that big on Varnum in that neighborhood. This is the largest structure, I think. I'd like to see more of a connection with sidewalks. There's a sidewalk that stops a couple homes up, going, I guess, easterly on Varnum. So it might be good if you could introduce or reintroduce sidewalks there. And then also, I'm just a little concerned about how you would redo the parking. The parking that currently exists seems to spill into the sidewalk area on both Meadowview and Varnum. It almost seems like you have 3 or 4 spaces that are probably not on your property. So it'd be good if we could have an edge there along those 2 streets that create a buffer with landscaping and sidewalks kind of thing. Mechanical systems and lighting, I think we'd want to just make sure that whatever you do there, that they're screened or quiet, or the lighting doesn't have any spillover effect on the neighboring properties. But as a whole, I think this is definitely going in a better direction than replacing it with another nursing home, which is a big advantage, I think. Have you done any studies to see the need for these kind of units in the city?
I actually just received some economic data and demographic data from the city. I haven't quite analyzed it yet, but over the course of the next week, I do expect to kind of pour through that and synthesize it.
Terrific. Okay, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Dennis. Gary?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. I guess at first glance, with the rendition as it's presented tonight, it looks like a large communal residential site, keeping the same exact footprint, and incorporating interior common access throughout the facility, private patios and the like. You know, my thought is, as you spoke to the guardrail system, what would be your thought process on that? Would you be looking at hardscape walls? Would you be looking at remaining that? Because if you're going in the line of a residential communal property, it seems also awful commercial, if you will. Kind of soften it up a little bit. Just a thought. If you're transitioning from a footprint that is in line institutional, and just what is your thought on that guardrail system? You mentioned the previous owner had put it up for safety purposes. If she put up a guardrail, my thought process is she was spending a lot of money on fence.
Yeah, that's my thought too, and that seemed to be her sentiment. She was expressing that people just kept bumping into the fence and would just go about their day and didn't care. In terms of the visual aesthetic of the guardrail, I agree. It does give a little bit more of a commercial, institutional feel. So I could definitely have Jack Sullivan take a look at that and see, and even an engineer, and see what alternatives we have that are kind of a little bit more in kind with the neighborhood. And like you said, soften it up a little bit.
As I look throughout this entire site that's been boarded up and a hazard and the like, I look at this rendering of the space and how you configured it. Like, I see you got a couple of 2-bedroom spots tucked in the 2-bedroom units tucked in the back corners. Seem to give every unit a residential feel with an access to a patio, keeping some green space. Is that the thought back there with the patios? Will there be green space?
That would most likely be a hard surface,
Okay.
the patio area. And then it's just a matter of what type of delineating barrier we'd want to have to kind of designate that as a patio area. So we can go with a more hard surface, which may be like a fence or something like that,
Okay.
barricade fence, or we can go with a softer surface, being shrubbery or something to that effect. My personal preference is probably a softer surface. But again, I could check with Jack on that and a landscape architect once we have the final plans.
Just the thought to that point is if you're moving in line of a residential purview, that the more residential feel that you'll have on that site, to me, would be a better value. At that point, I know as exploratory pieces are coming together, so.
Okay.
And I think if I could just say, I think the feedback that you're giving, it's all feedback that's really going to help Mr. Coates when he sets up an appointment with his architect to bring these comments to him. I think a lot of these comments that you're making were anticipated, and that's why we wanted to come here, to make sure that you understood that the goal in this is to make it less institutional, more residential, more marketable, more pleasing to somebody who would want to live there in a residential community. So I think those are, excellent ideas, and I think probably would come back with a plan that's very specific, and not only is it the front plan, but it would deal with the sides, both sides as well as the rear. So you would have an idea on paper exactly what it would look like, and if I were in your position, that's what I'd want to see too. So I think we appreciate the comments. And
Thank you. feedback. Just as it relates to those, that data you received, as the market is looking towards this type of housing, residential housing, will you be submitting a report to follow up with some type of information we could look at? You said you just received some data from the economic value of this type of residential space. Would that be some of the information to be flowing back to us?
Absolutely.
So we'd have an idea.
Absolutely. I can
I
give
think
you a
that would-
summary.
I think that will come in line with the traffic study and pace of play, if you would, with the activity. I think that type of information would be helpful. At least it would be for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Sean?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't have any questions or comments.
All right, so I guess the other thing, I know I asked about, the rendition, so when you do come before us, a formal landscape plan will obviously be, I would highly suggest, put together. Who's going to manage the facility once it's up and running? What's your plan around that?
We have multiple options there. We can outsource it to a third-party, local company, or we can keep it in-house. We have a property management company, the Genesis Property Group. So more likely than not, we'll keep it in-house and maintain strict control.
Okay. And if you keep it in-house, would that property manager be residing in one of the units or not?
Probably not. We would most likely have a professional property manager. There's space at the basement level that lends itself well for a leasing office and office space. So chances are it will be someone that is a full-time property manager, and that's their sole objective for the day.
Okay. Well, the reason why I ask is, since it's a potential new venture there and you have a neighborhood, an established neighborhood, it might be very helpful, who's ever managing that property, in the event there's any issues, kind of like at the startup, especially with the neighborhood, if there are any, it'd be good to have somebody on site that can address any issues at all. If you know what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
You can't solve every problem in the world, but I was just curious if you're going to have on-site management or what your plans were. I would assume for
Absolutely.
that size building, you got to have some type of management 24 hours a day.
So in just my business philosophy, I think it's good to be very collaborative with the neighborhood. And there are actually multiple neighbors that have my cell phone number already. So I've let my immediate abutter have a yard sale in the parking lot. They have my number. They know to keep an eye out on the building, and kind of quid pro quo, we take care of each other's neighbors.
Okay. If I can go to the, I guess, the plot plan here, Attorney Gary. Dennis mentioned about losing parking. When I visited the site, in fact, I went out there a couple of times, and when I started taking a look at the GIS and then taking a look at the plans that were submitted, I had the same conclusions that you were going to lose some of these parking areas because they look like they're on city land. And I know Dennis mentioned it also. I think it's at 530. Now, 535 sits right next door, the right-hand parking.
Yes.
So there's 535, and I noticed some of the spots are marked with 535, almost like, is that their parking or not their parking, or was that something that was there once before?
What I can't speak to how they feel, but I can tell you that
Yep.
this owner now,
Yep.
the prior owner, and the owner prior to that over the last 50 years has paved that whole area. They've striped it, they've plowed it, they've maintained it,
Okay.
and Mr. Coates has continued to do that.
Yep.
Whether there's a dispute over that, I'm not sure.
Well, and the reason why I ask is, when I pulled in there, I noticed there was like at least 3 or 4 spots marked for 535. And then I noticed that there's a private way, this Woodbine Avenue, runs from Varnum all the way up to West Meadow.
I believe it's a paper street.
Okay, well, so obviously the parking's been there. I guess I don't want to make sure. I guess you should make sure. You own that property. I'm sure you do, but the reason why I'm asking is because I even noticed on your plot plan on the parking on the right where you show 10 spots, but, the top right one, which is kind of next to, do they have a easement or something to get into their garage there at 535?
I don't think there's any easement on the deed or anything. I think if anything, it's just been good neighbors.
Okay, well, you might want to check that out.
And that's being dealt
I'm not trying
with.
to tell you how to do your job, but
Right.
you might want to,
You wanna just-
because one of the things, I think in the write-up it mentioned you had 40 parking spots, and if you're going to lose a few with city-owned land. I noticed, is there 2 in the rear that are handicap?
That's correct.
Okay, so those weren't labeled with a number 2. I didn't know. I know when I drove back there, I was trying to figure out where you're going to put any parking at all in that section. I didn't know if you were going to stack 2. Then I noticed on your plans you had them. So is the requirement, Joe, do they only need 2 handicap out of 40?
I believe so, but we can double check that at the time a full application comes in.
Okay, so,
I think the requirement per the table is 2 per unit. I think it's the greater of 0.75 parking spaces per bedroom or 2 per unit. And in this one, 2 per unit prevails.
well, I always think I know the math, but then I leave it up to the expert over here to make sure. But I'm just going on what was submitted, that, I don't know if you're going to have 40. You might be shy 1 or 2, but that Woodbine Ave, I was just curious because I also noticed you talked about snow storage on that right-hand side. Now, there's a very large tree there. Is that tree staying or coming down to put the snow storage in there?
Most likely, we'll probably clear a little buffer zone. So in that case, it would come down.
Yep. Okay, so you're going to have snow storage there. You're going to have snow storage. You showed it in rear, which I know when I went in the rear, it looked like you could push snow back. It was pretty far. It was a pretty straight shot.
That's right.
Which was good for the parking. And now the dumpster, you'll have 1 dumpster back there.
Correct.
And what I think's nice about this corner lot is, I know I drove the neighborhood, and it's pretty much just a horseshoe there. You really can't get out of there once you go in. It's pretty much a horseshoe.
Right.
So I don't see any large vehicles driving through the neighborhood there also. There shouldn't be. They should just pull in and pull out. So 2 handicap, 18 units. So the number of units, I heard 18, I heard 20. What's going to determine the number of units? I mean, obviously, if you need the parking, that might be a sticking point, but what's the number you're shooting for?
Good point. To answer the question specifically, we're limiting the units based on the number of parking spaces. So something that I'm being adamant about is with my neighbors, I would like to relieve the on-street parking burden that they've been experiencing since 1963, since the building was a nursing home. So if I can achieve that objective with this project, I'd be very pleased with that. So that right now is what is the limiting factor, why we're saying no more than 20 units, because we see that there are 40 spaces there. If we lose a couple of spaces, we'll kind of just have to put our thinking caps on and see if we can relocate spaces elsewhere in the site.
Right.
If we cannot, then the number of units will come down. And just to clarify, I know we're on the agenda as requesting for 18 units. I think in the letter that we submitted and the plans that we submitted, it shows 20 units. So I just want to clarify
It did mention
that discrepancy.
both. And,
Okay. So the up to 20 units is the fact, the actual request and the plan of record right now.
Well, that's why, again, and I'm sure Attorney Geary will look into this, I'm just curious about those spots on the right-hand side.
Absolutely.
If there's, I see a private way, I didn't know if there was an easement, but I'll leave that for you gentlemen to work out. But as far as, somebody mentioned on the board about a walkway, a sidewalk. Now, what I noticed on Varnum Ave, and I know there's some representatives here, in front of Lowell General, there's a sidewalk. In front of Department of Health, there's a sidewalk, all nice new sidewalks, but I don't know if the city has a plan. There's a sidewalk on the opposite side of the street of Varnum, but there isn't really one on this side. So I don't know if the city has a plan down the road to put a sidewalk in. And I know in front of number 535, it looks like there's some type of sidewalk there. I think it's on the corner of West Meadow. So that would extend down. I don't know if the city's planning on putting a sidewalk. It'd be nice if there was a new sidewalk, but Joe, I don't think that's a requirement that we ask of petitioners to put a sidewalk in, correct?
It's possible that the board could look at having a sidewalk implemented.
Yeah, well, I don't, okay, I just wanted to ask. That was just another observation, which kind of went back to the parking, but
Yes.
anyways.
There is a contiguous sidewalk on the southerly side of Varnum Avenue.
Yeah.
So that continues all the way down Varnum.
Yeah.
And there are bike paths on either side of Varnum Avenue. On the northerly side, where my property is located, you're correct, there is no sidewalk there. And if you continue west down Varnum, there is no sidewalk continuing on that
Yep.
side of the street, only on the southerly side of Varnum.
Okay. I think that was pretty much it for me. Hopefully, you heard some comments from the board that, may or may not assist you. Again, the purpose of the meeting, since I've been on this board, we've never had a pre-application meeting. I know the planning board does it, but ZBA has never held one of these, and I think it's actually a pretty good exercise, just to get an idea.
I know, we talked about it when I was on the board, that many years ago, and it was always something that was in the process, and when I saw it, I thought it was a great opportunity, and it turns out it is. I mean, the comments that Mr. McCarthy made are gonna go right to Mr. Coates' engineer, a landscape architect, as well as Jack Sullivan, his architect, and we can make those changes, and the comments about covering up the industrial part, the HVAC systems and things like that to kind of hide those. That's excellent. That, what we were thinking about, but it's good to hear that everybody's on the same page with that, and those things will be implemented. So I think when you see the final plan, it's not going to be inspirational. It will be, you might be inspired by it, but it's going to be actually what it's there. I think we'd probably reserve the color. Maybe that might be the only thing reserved until that can be decided upon, but whatever color it's going to be, it's not going to be a screaming pink or bright yellow or anything like that. It's going to be something softer that's going to fit in with the neighborhood. I think at the end of all of this, the neighborhood is going to see immediate results here. It's going to really look good.
Anybody else? Any last comments? If not, well, thank you very
Okay,
much.
we look forward to
gentlemen,
coming back, and thank you for
coming
your
in.
time.
Yep,
Thank you.
thank you. No, sir. It's not open to the public, no. All right. What's that? Yeah, I know. That's why I'm looking for, oh. Okay, any other business, Joe, we need to entertain this evening?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any board members, any comments? Hearing none, can I make a motion to adjourn? No, sir? No, sir? Well, I could have, I'm not entertaining anything. I made it perfectly clear. Yes? Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
So moved.